Welcome back to another episode of the ABL review for season 21, week 9. Or no, week 8, excuse me. Week 8? Week 7. Week 7. It's the same weeks in the north. I literally just finished recording the south. Took a sip of my zero sugar cherry Dr. Pepper and rolled right back into recording. Nobody from Dr. Pepper is listening, but if you have an uncle who works at Dr. Pepper, tell them to sponsor me. I will talk about them so much to the 11 people who listen to this. Anyways, week 7 of the North, final week of the regular season. Big playoff implications. Let's get into the games, but we do have to talk about one game that did have big playoff implications that didn't happen. The London Dragonites versus the Miami Pelicans. Curtis, unavailable, unreachable, did not get back to Dakota, so Dakota's going to take a forfeit win there. Dakota was in a really do-or-die situation late here in the season, and he did. Granted, he took a forfeit win, which, I mean, you take those when people give them to you. So maybe it doesn't feel as good, leaves a little bit of a bitter taste in the mouth, but hey, he made it to playoffs, and as we'll see in the seedings, ended up doing pretty well for himself. So, with that out of the way, we're going to talk about, we're going to hop into some of these games. Here, look at this. Guys, look, I framed it up right. Look, amazing. It only took me 7 weeks and many, many mistakes, and I'll probably forget to do it again. But let's hop into Zach versus Kyle. Kind of some interesting stuff going on here. So we get the Electrode versus Samurott lead. That does a lot of damage. I would have to guess. Okay, real quick, let's follow my logic here, because I'm just trying to do head calcs. Electrode went for Volt Switch, did 71%. In my head, so Volt Switch is a 70 base power move, did 70%. So in theory, if he had gone for Thunderbolt, would it have done 90-ish%? Do you think that's how that works out? I mean, I could calc it to confirm, but just doing head calcs, that's how I'd come up with it. So I think he would have wanted to go for Thunderbolt there, might have given him a chance to KO, who's to say. But ends up just Volt switching out into Blastoise. I figured we'd just see a Rapid Spin come out here to get rid of those spikes. This seems like a different Blastoise than I was really expecting, because we see the Iron Defense come up. Pretty surprised about that. I don't know exactly what the game plan was. I guess that's nice to set up versus the Houndstone, Samurott, Tinkaton, maybe the T-Tar as well. I mean, Zach's team's super hard to plan for because of the Sand Core along with everything else he's got going on. So, not going to give too much grief to Kyle here. But we see the Iron Defense Surf. I think we see Rapid Spin from it later. This was a kind of surprising one, switching in the Fighting type against the Flying type. I guess he was either predicting another knockoff or a maybe Grass Knot or something to come out here. But we actually get the Speed Drop and the Defiant boost from Annihilate. But that tends not to matter because he just gets followed up with another Bleakwind Storm KO. That's tough for Kyle. One of his bigger offensive threats out of the game immediately. And I think it had a pretty decent matchup here if he could have hung in there. So unfortunate that he sees it go down that soon. Soon Electrode's going to come in, kind of scare this out. I think we see a T-Bolt into probably a Volt Switch here. Just kind of chipping on that T-Tar as much as possible. Knockoff. Now, this is interesting. I think having Zach seen Iron Defense, I think he might be worried about a body press. So I believe he's gonna try. I figured he would have tried to preserve the T-Tar. I couldn't quite remember what happened, but he just decides to go for it. It's like he doesn't have body press. Get the fuck out my way. But Kyle does manage to get rid of the spikes, which I think is important, for where he is in this game. Ironhead's going to come out on the Tornadus, not do quite as much damage as I think he would have hoped. Gets a lucky burn on the Heat Wave there. This Iron Treads would have put a lot more pressure on this Tornadus if that hadn't been the case. Electrode's going to Volt Switch out here, and I think Kyle's really starting to lose a lot of steam. Gets the Aftermath damage and the Para on T-Tar, but that's what he needs right now. At this point, he is so far behind. I think the Thunder Wave was the right call, because you just need to... You hope it buys you a turn, right? Like, he could have maybe gone for Leaf Storm there. Maybe KO'd the Tyranitar, I'm not sure. Probably after Aftermath, he could have KO'd the Tyranitar. But I think this Thunder Wave is a lottery ticket. He now has a 25% chance to get a free opportunity to set up with Salamence. And you didn't see the Intimidate go off here, unless... Yeah, we didn't see the Intimidate go off, so this is Moxie Salamence. If he gets a free opportunity to Dragon Dance up here, we could be seeing some big numbers start to go up, right? Because since this is a Sand T-Tar, we can assume this is not Fluffy Houndstone. It probably won't take damage too well. And then we can really start to see some Salamence put in some work. If he gets one turn, you go for the Dragon Dance, get the speed boost, get the attack boost, dies to a Stone Edge. At this point, I don't think there's much that Kyle can fight back from. Sure, I think he does get a couple of KOs here, but it's mostly, this is, what's the word I want to say? It's pretty much just by the numbers, just clean it up. This is cleanup work for Zach here. Yeah, he's just gonna sack off some things he doesn't need that are not really gonna do him any good. I think he probably just waited long enough with the other Pokemon so that way he could send out Houndstone and get the Terra Blast KO. Doesn't even need to risk a Poltergeist miss on an Amorous because he's just gonna Terra Ghost with Houndstone. Just yeah, pretty paint by numbers here for Zach. I think Kyle made a couple of mistakes. I mean, I think the Annihilate mistake is probably his biggest. But it's super hard to play in for Zach's team. Zach's undefeated thus far this season, and for good reason. This team is very good, and he's a good player. I mean, just simple as that. But let's go to our next game. We've got Logan taking on Jabron. This is for a playoff spot, right? This is a play-in game for the playoffs. We'll kind of go over the ins and outs of that later. It might not have been if Curtis had faced actually played and faced Dakota, assuming Curtis won, but we'll get into that. So we got the Volcanion versus the Donphan. Easy thoughts to throw off the Steam Eruption versus the Rotom, but Volt switch out here. I really like this play by Logan to go for the Power Herb Solar Beam. I think that's pretty crafty. If he had gotten that on Rotom Wash, super big. I like that play. Didn't end up working out here. He's got a very safe switch into Sylveon with the Empoleon. Both two evolutions, because they both end in Eon, right? Like Charmeleon, Finneon, Empoleon. Glacier is going to come out, get its lefties knocked off, which is good. Oh, but this is bad. We're going to see this here. So, turns into a fire type, goes for Terra Blast, doesn't get the KO, lives the Icicle Crash. Okay, this is a lot going on here. So, let's take it back a turn. I just think this is such a weird play by Logan here. So, that's Stab, Terra Blast, that's 80 base power, does 55%. That's super effective, so it's 160, right? Everyone follow my logic there? Oh no, but it's Stab, so that's 120, so, right? That's plus, so 80 times 1.5 is 120. Super effective, 240, does 55. Okay, we're just doing some head calcs here. Icicle Crash doesn't KO. Now, I would have been super tempted. I think Logan made the right play by switching, but we'll just see some other questionable choices he makes here. Because now, you just need to do 33%. So Thunderbolt, which should be neutral to whatever he could kind of go for, Glacier would turn into here. Thunderbolt would do 90, but it's Stab, so it's plus 45, so it's 135 compared to the 240, so it's going to do less by about half, but less than half. So let's say 60%. 60% of 55 is 5.5 times 6 is 3, probably 33%. Hey, look at that. It works out. I think he could have fired off a Thunderbolt here and been pretty safe if he had it. Probably got the KO. Definitely got the KO in hindsight because he turned Water type. I don't know what might have been going through Logan's head here, but I don't get going into Empoleon unless he was really predicting Ground to come out, but I don't know. And then he goes ahead and sacks the Rotom, on that turn. Then brings in, then Polian is still not able to get the KO. I don't get, he gave 2 Pokemon away to this Glastrier for no reason. I think he could have gotten out of there with just, my guess is he didn't know what he assumed the Terra, but he guessed wrong on which Terra. Let's see what Terras Jabron had. It's gonna look ugly for a second, but get over it, everybody. Jabron, Glastrier, could have gone Ice. If he had gone Ice, then my Thunderbolt idea still works. Yeah, I think the Thunderbolt would have been the right play. Maybe the calcs didn't support what I was saying, but my head calcs support what I was saying. So, I think I'm right. Okay, so, where are we? Yeah, so the Glastrier just got KOs it shouldn't have gotten, and then we're just going to have Brambleghast come in, get a nice, safe Shadow Sneak KO there. Ogerpon's going to come out. Obviously, you got to force that out. The Ivy Cudgel's coming. I'm going to U-turn out. Now, this could probably be Flame Body, but it's also, like, doesn't matter because you can't burn a Fire type, and Cudgel is not Contact for whatever stupid reason. Goes for a Power Gem there. I think kind of an overly conservative play. I think Lava Plume wouldn't have gotten the KO on Ogerpon anyways, but I think it would have been better, in my opinion. Donphan's going to come in. This is a shocking amount of damage, I think. I'm just like, here, and look at this. This is Leftovers Donphan, right? And this is a Brambleghast resists this, and it does over half. That's crazy to me. Goes for the Power Whip, does pretty good damage. It's obviously a very offensive Brambleghast, but Ice Spinner is able to get the KO. That's still crazy that a resisted hit does over half. Like, it's not even like this is a super offensive Donphan. It's pretty offensive. But lefties, right? Close Combat's able to pick up the KO there from Great Tusk. Gets a crit with the on the Sylveon. Kind of brings him back into a little bit of like striking distance. Gonna follow, so he's gonna go Sludge Wave, follow up with another Sludge Wave. I think maybe he was baiting him into going for not a Sludge Wave, so that way you bring out Ogerpon, or he was just sacking it, one of the two. Yeah, at this point, Logan doesn't have enough pieces to beat what's left here. I think that's pretty obvious. He's just gonna try to have this Rotom kind of wear itself down, hopefully baiting out all, like, right there he's clearly trying to bait out a Hydro Pump. He says oops, damn. I don't think that was an oops. I think that was a smart play to try to get that. Then Ironcrowd's able to pick up with the Tachyon Cutter KO at the end. Jabron played really well here. Logan made a couple of bonehead decisions, I think. But overall, still pretty well performed game. Yeah, and Jabron gets that win. Only puts him at 2 wins on the season, but they're important wins. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Because now we're going to get into our marquee match of the week.
Marquee match of the week. Now we have a theme.
So this is cool. This is for a first round bye. Right now, Brett basically has it and is defending it. But if you lose it to Drew, they'll have the same record, and Drew will have the head-to-head tiebreaker. So, let's just hop into it here. Let's talk about a couple of changes that Brett made to his team. He got rid of Rillaboom, and he got the Ogerpon Teal Mask. And then also he got rid of... I don't remember what else. And he got Regieleki. Pretty key changes, right? He did these last week, I think, right? Time means nothing anymore. Or no, yeah. He did this previous week because I'm all messed up. Anyways, I guess we're just gonna get into it. I do think that Regieleki's rough in this matchup just because there's so many things that don't care about Regieleki. Like Gliscor can come in on it all day. Best thing Regieleki can do is click Swift or Terra Blast, not Ice, just normal, and do 30% damage. But we'll get into it. Brett has a very clear game plan of what he's going to do here. Ursaluna's going to come out and just fire off a Choice Specs Blood Moon. Does so much damage. Now, we saw Mitch do this in, I think, one of the first games of the season where he's got Choice Specs Blood Moon, but he just stayed in. Good choice to not do that. But Drew's going to take the opportunity to get Gliscor in, get that Toxic Orb activated. Slowking's going to Chilly Reception out, bring in Ogerpon. I like this here. Like, the Air Balloon's a good call because it at least doesn't invite Beartick in immediately. Because Beartick is good against this squad here. It forces Brett to make some different play, and he goes into the Ogerpon and just goes for U-turn to pop that balloon. I think that's a smart move. What the fuck is this music? This is heavy. Gets this battle from Pokemon Black. I don't remember. I don't know. Anyways, let's focus up here, okay, guys? Come on, let's not get sidetracked. Okay, U-turn pops the balloon. Smart play there. That's insurance for later. So it gives Slowking some regenerator, and then it's also going to, let him pop that balloon. Earthquake's gonna come out there. It's smart. I like what both of them are doing. Like, obviously Drew is in a spot where he has to make the right switches, or else he's gonna lose a Pokemon. That's why he went from Gliscor back to, and then he didn't go back to Heatran. He went into Ogerpon because it was a nice middle ground play. Because Brett just went for back-to-back Earthquakes because he's like, oh, obviously I should go for Icicle Spear here. But if he goes back into Heatran on my Icicle Spear, he's going to take like no damage, and then the hail's going to end. Smart play by both guys. It's kind of like, I know like maybe 3 people watch wrestling. I actually don't know how many people here watch wrestling. But if you ever watch wrestling, sometimes some people do like they'll do like a little bit of technical wrestling. They call it just like, ooh, waist lock, and then flip to a headlock, then go for a pin, and he flips out of it, and then they just stand there and look at each other, and then everyone's supposed to clap. If you ever go to a wrestling show and 2 people just do some moves and stare at each other, you're supposed to clap and woo. It's the polite thing to do. But that's what that was right there. That's what turn 8 was. It's the clap and woo moment. So Beartick's going to switch out into Overquill, get off that Intimidate as a Swords Dance goes up. So this is going to be a +1 Ivy Cudgel coming out here. And he gets a crit. But Overquill's able to hang on, get off the Barb Barrage, and snag the poison. Does just enough there to come through. Go ahead and sack the Overquill. It's done its job. Zapdos still pretty low. Pretty surprising. We're going to get the knockoff on the Grafai. Really good damage. The Pyapa Berry. I don't know what the Pyapa Berry was for. Oh, Pyapa Berry is a Psychic Berry, right? Or Iapapa is a Psychic Berry. Wait. Pretty sure. What's Pyapa? Jeez, hang on. You guys, don't mind me. I'm just going to look it up over here. Pyapa Berry. Because there's Iapapa, Pyapa, and Pitaya. And I thought Pitaya was the... Okay, it is the Psychic Berry. So what's an Iapapa? Oh, Iapapa Berry is like one of the super citruses. Okay, there. So that's the Psychic Reducing Berry. Obviously, his plan was to be able to take like a Psychic attack from, I don't know, maybe Slowking or some shit. Didn't end up coming to play here. Regieleki's going to come in. This is obviously the opportunity he wants to take advantage of. Luckily, it doesn't get poisoned there for him. Able to get to Rapid Spin here, get rid of those rocks, at least for a little bit, because that Heatran's going to find opportunities to get him back up. Smart move here, going for the taunt, able to shut down that the Chilly Reception business. He finds it to be worth it just to get that to give up Grafai to do that. Slowking's going to come back in. This was kind of interesting because I don't know if Brett was like, oh, he might have taunt on the Gliscor too. We haven't seen enough from him, but if he goes for anything else, I'm just going to try to take the KO, and I'm not going to worry about Chilly Receptioning because I can do that again later. Smart play. Fires off the Ice Beam, doesn't amount to anything, but the rocks do go back up as Beartick's going to come in. Now, here's the nice thing about this. Because we're going to see this a couple of times. Brett can't remove Stealth Rocks anymore, but Beartick outspeeds everything if the snow is up. So, he doesn't need HP. HP is not a commodity this Beartick cares about. Because he doesn't make contact with any of his moves, so he doesn't have to worry about a Rocky Helmet. There's no priority left, so he doesn't have to worry about that. All he's got to do is outspeed and land his attacks. So now, Drew is big time on the defensive. He needs to stall out this snow and be able to get a Pokemon in at the end of it that can, disrupt Slowking. And that's going to be hard to do. So let's see how he does with that. Gliscor is going to come in on the Earthquake, and he decides, last time I got him to go for a double Earthquake. Let's see if I can fake him out into doing that again, because the switch back into Heatran is pretty obvious. Ends up not working out. He just gets Icicle Speared and KO'd. So that's one down. Heatran's going to come out, go hard into Zapdos. Brett is just like, he's just leaving shit in. Let me attack what's in front of me. Works out that time. We get the Zapdos to come in, and the Heatran comes in on the Icicle Spear. It's tough because Drew's in a position where he basically has to do this for 5 turns in a row and then stop the Slowking, and then probably this is just going to keep happening. He's in a rough spot here. And Brett's just going to keep pressuring him because the Heatran comes in on that. Zapdos is going to come hard out as a Chilly Reception brings the Beartic back in, and now he's got but Brett's not playing around anymore. He's not gonna bother guessing, right? The ground type's gone. He can just go Terra Electric. It's gonna KO everything else that's there. Smart move by Brett. Well, it's gonna KO almost everything else that's there. He's getting unlucky rolls here. So, got 24, 26, 24. He needs he needs another 26 to get it, or he needs to get that 5th roll. Gets to 25, so he's 1% short. Does he get the 5th roll? No, he doesn't. Unfortunate for him there, but also he's still in a fine spot. Ogerpon's gonna come in. It's gonna be faster than Espeon. Just gonna start wearing stuff down. This Heatran can't regain HP, and this Slowking can't really be killed by the Heatran. So he's in a perfectly safe spot here. He's gonna fire off a Scald here. Espeon's going to come out. He's not going to give it an opportunity to potentially set up, although it doesn't matter because he does have Ursaluna Blood Moon with Choice Specs Vacuum Wave, able to clean up. Clean, safe end game from Brett. I like how I like his end games. He doesn't make any flashy, risky plays. He just does it in the safest, most no frills way possible, and I like that. But comes away with the win. Both of these guys still going to playoffs, but Brett's going to get the first round bye, and Darren's going to be thrown into, honestly, a blender of competition. Let's talk about it. So, here's the schedule. So here's how it shook out. Okay, here's the last week. Now let's go look at the standings, cause it's kind of a mess. Okay, so easy stuff first. Dallas Drills 7-0. Guess what? They're the number 1 seed. Brett 6-1. He's the number 2 seed. Only lost to the Drills. Beat everybody else. Easy 2 seed. Drew, he's the only 4-3 team. He lost to some people that he lost to 2 teams above him. Easy, and he lost to the last place team. Doesn't matter. They are 2 games apart. Not an issue. Doesn't have to worry about any tiebreakers. Dakota, 3-4, ended up winning enough games down the stretch that he was able to stay alive. But that's basically because the teams below him had a rough go of things. So if he had lost this week, he's 2-4. Curtis is at the 3-5 spot. Curtis would catapult up if he had played and lost to Curtis, which is not a guarantee. I'm just exploring what's possible. But if that had also happened, it is an incredibly messy. It's incredibly messy how things go from there. So we'll talk about it. Because, well, I guess he would have been, at that point, he would have been 2-4, had tiebreakers over both Kyle and Jabron, but then Logan. Never mind. Let's deal with reality. So we had 2 teams at 2-5, and we had Logan had beaten Dakota. And he had beaten Logan had beaten Dakota, but Dakota's not really in this group. So for me, because this is an argument I had with Logan for a while, because it's like, hey, we got a bunch of 2-5 teams. Jabron has wins over 2 of the 2-5 teams. Kyle has wins over 2 of the 2-5 teams. Logan has a win over 1 of the 2-5 teams. Curtis has a win over 1 of the 2-5 teams. My logic was, in terms of relevant games that these 4 teams have played against each other, Jabron's 2-2 in games of this group. Kyle's 2-2 in games of this group. Logan's 1-3. Curtis is 1-3 in games of this group. But Logan pointed out that his winning strength of schedule, which is something we used in the past, and also Curtis's for that matter, is stronger than these two. Because the only teams that these two teams have won against are teams with bad records. Logan's won against a team with a slightly better record. Curtis has won against a team with a slightly better record. So we got to figure out how to look at it. But the easiest thing to do is Curtis just forfeited his last 2 games of the season, and he forfeited one earlier in the season. So Curtis isn't playing, okay? If we really we just eliminate him from consideration for playoffs, which we should, because he didn't play the last 2 games of the season. Standing kind of tradition is if somebody forfeits 3 games in the season, they're out. Okay, we just want people who play, and he forfeited his 3rd game of the season, so he's out. He's out of contention. Which just leaves Logan versus Kyle and Jabron. They both have tiebreakers over him. Made it much easier. Jabron's got the tiebreaker over Kyle, so he's going to slide into the 5th spot. Dakota, after having like a really grim outlook 2 weeks ago, ends up in the 4th spot. So we got Dakota versus Jabron. They just played each other 2 weeks ago, and Dakota came away with a win. Kyle versus Drew. Don't remember when they played each other. Feels like longer ago. But that's what we got for playoffs. So next week we have week 8 of the South, and we're gonna have the quarterfinals of the North. So we got 3 weeks of playoffs here in the North. 2 games, 1 game. We don't really need to do a 3rd place game for the North unless the teams involved want to. We can, obviously. But I think that is all we need to talk about. No team changes, because the last week for team changes happened. I think Dakota was the only team that made any Terra changes. You can't see it on this screen here for whatever stupid reason. Oh, like if I want to frame out my toolbar at the bottom and some like just ugly toolbar stuff at the top. Let's see if I can does that make it any better? No, it just shows more below. Then I ended up framing it a little tighter, which means you miss like a whole column. Like you can't see Dakota's team, but that's fine. You know what Dakota's team looks like. Oh, okay. I've been talking for too long. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you to everybody in the North. Thank you for wrapping up a good season here. I mean, not that the South didn't have a good season, but their season's not quite wrapped up yet. How are we looking on stats? I should probably try to catch up on those at some point. It's still a little behind. We'll get to it when we get to it. I think that wraps everything up. Thank you guys for listening again, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.